thinking a lot and deeply about what's important to me and what I really want right now. So actually at the moment, I've put all of that on pause, which has given me more space to get really excited about the work that I'm doing and be more present with it. And also be more excited about some of the chunks in my schedule where I get to go on a long walk or drive up to my favorite cafe that has the best croissants in the city and then go to the beach and eat them. So that is part of my weekly ritual, and one that I realize I don't want to give up for a while.
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Niketa Kumar, a private practice entrepreneur in San Francisco, California. Listen as we talk about how she built her practice in 5 months while being totally authentic, and how she thinks about money, both in her clinical work and as a business owner. Welcome, Niketa. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
Me too. I want to talk to you about your entrepreneurial journey. How long have you been in private practice?
So it's been a year and some change. How much change? About a year and 3 months.
Okay. And I was drawn to something really interesting about your website. You've got these avatars on the Issues I Treat page. So there are these illustrations with blank faces, and then they each have little statements below of something that a person with that constellation of issues might say about themselves. So how did you come up with this, and what did you do to write each of the statements?
How did I come up with that? Well, I one of the things that I also looked at lots of therapist websites as I was figuring out what I wanted to do with mine. And I have to say, I wasn't that impressed with a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them are speaking in jargon, are speaking to other therapists, and are not speaking to the individuals that are actually seeking therapy. So I was thinking about, I was trying to rewind and imagine what it was like before I was a therapist, before I knew anything really about this field, and what I would want to know. And I wanted to try and speak directly to the people that I was hoping and wanting to work with. And I thought that by giving these examples, hopefully I would attract the right kinds of clients as well, that people who would see themselves reflected in these statements would be a good fit for me. And I do find that most people that reach out to me are a good fit for me, which is wonderful.
It is. And it's not a coincidence. It's totally the awesome work you did on your website. I mean, it's not totally that. There's other factors, but that is huge.
Thank you. And I should also credit, I ran all of that by several people. I think that more heads are better than one. And it was important to me to reach out to people who are not in the community at all. So this is going back to my friends and family and asking them, what do you think of this? How does this read for you? And they gave me feedback. Some of them were like, this is cheesy, cut it. Stupid, get rid of it. So that was really helpful. I think having people that can give you honest feedback is such a gift.
Totally. And then especially if you can find, which just sounds like what you did, people who are completely not therapists, and then also who are in some ways similar to the people you're trying to reach, so that like you were just saying, some people might say, no, this is cheesy, cut it. And if they have a criticism of what you've written, it's coming from someone who is in some ways similar to who is actually going to be your right fit client. It's so valuable. Yeah, because therapists will read it and they'll be like, yeah, that all makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense.
I know, no individual seeking therapy has come in talking to you about their unconscious drives.
Nope.
That's not a phrase that people outside of our little community use.
Yeah. And maybe when we're working with other therapists that works, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who do you tend to see in your practice?
So I work with individuals that identify as being part of an underrepresented group. And so what I mean by that is someone whose story or whose experience is not reflected in the dominant culture. So I work with a lot of women, people of color, immigrants, individuals who grew up in a social or economic class that is different from the one that they now occupy or inhabit. And just looking at some of the challenges that come along with all of these different identities or kind of changes in identities. And to put it even more broadly, I think it's anyone who's had the experience of being an other, of really feeling different from other people and all the challenges that come along with navigating that.
And I think that's fantastic. I think another thing in your website that really came across and would draw those people is that you're talking about yourself, that you're willing to self-disclose a little bit on your website. How did you figure out how much you wanted to self-disclose and how much you didn't?
That was a challenge for me, and that continues to be a challenge for me. I went to a school where self-disclosure was not really talked about, but the message was clear. It was just something you didn't do. And
me too.
We're not taught to share anything about ourselves. And sometimes, I see the merits in that, but I also noticed in my clinical work how that became a barrier, and that we're kind of living in a different time now, and there's a lot of information out there already. And I think it's a very kind of basic human desire to want to know more about this person that you're sharing some of the most intimate parts of yourself with.
Yeah.
So, I when I think about what to share about myself, I definitely gauge does this feel comfortable to me? And then I think about how will it be for this person to hear it? And I don't only think about that, I often ask about it. I also have a lot of individuals seeking help from me that kind of externally seem similar. Like they might be young Indian women kind of around my age who grew up in a smaller town that's mostly white in America. And I think especially with those individuals, it's important for me to talk about, we've definitely had shared experiences, and there've also been a lot of differences. And, talking about how even though we can have all these commonalities, there are big differences that I think there can be a hope that someone who kind of looks like me externally is going to get me. And I want to try and talk about what it's going to be like when I don't, when I miss the mark, or what it's like for them to feel close and space from people that both look and do not look like them.
How does it go for you when people come in and tell you they already know some things about you from what you said in your website? Does that tend to be helpful?
Yeah, that feels good. It just feels like a kind of acknowledgement of what's there. And I always like to encourage the individuals I work with to talk to me about whatever comes up, So I'm always really happy when someone shares that with me, and then it gives us a nice opportunity to talk about what reactions they had, or what hopes they might have had, or what about that was helpful or helped them to feel connected. It's all just getting to know more about them and what's important to them.
Yeah, I love this example too of the clinical work is already kind of starting in the marketing, right? Like it's not like there's these two completely separate things. I mean, we're not working with people before we're working with them, but the relationship has already started, and there's no way that we're going to be a blank slate, even just as soon as our picture or our name, anything is up on our website. And I think the only way someone could even come up with this blank slate idea would be if they were completely part of the dominant culture, right? Like it just doesn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So how are things going in your private practice?
They're going really well. So I filled up faster than I expected. I filled up after about 5 months of being in private practice. And that happened a lot faster than I expected. It was great. And also, came with like those silly things that feel silly to complain about. Like, oh, I didn't expect that this would be what it was already. And, actually we're meeting at an interesting time, because for the last several months, I would say I've been thinking about like, okay, what's next? Like I filled up, and what's my next step? And what am I supposed to do now? Not really noticing how much it is a part of me to always be striving myself in a way, to always be thinking about the next thing and thinking about how to continue building. And I would say in the past month or so, I've been thinking a lot and deeply about what's important to me and what I really want right now. So actually at the moment, I've put all of that on pause, which has given me more space to get really excited about the work that I'm doing and be more present with it. And also be more excited about some of the chunks in my schedule where I get to go on a long walk or drive up to my favorite cafe that has the best croissants in the city and then go to the beach and eat them. So that is part of my weekly ritual, and one that I realized I don't want to give up for a while.
Yeah. So that drive to keep striving and growing, I feel like those ideas are just available to us, right? They're just all around us. And is that something for you personally that's always been there, driving and striving?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I wonder how much that has to do with, I wonder how much your practice filling up in 5 months is partly because of that, or how much it was just you put the right message out there. Like, do you feel like you really pushed?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of luck involved. Like, don't get me wrong there, but I definitely worked my ass off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it was all I did for, a while. And I don't want to minimize that either. I worked really hard to get it where it is. And that's not to discredit lots of individuals who are working hard, and it's not where that is. But I worked really hard. And I think that's something I have to notice about myself, is that I do have this tendency to really feel and give into that pressure to be achieving in this way that, I have to stop and question what that's about for me, and if that's really in line with my values now.
Mm-hmm. Like, just because you could do so much more, does that mean you want to do so much more right now?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, it's like a problem you didn't expect to have necessarily.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah. That's great. And if you were going to do something else, like when you're ready, what kinds of things come to mind?
So I have this fantasy that I'll share with you of being able to, I don't think I haven't worked out any of the details around this. It's very much still in fantasy phase, but being able to create some kind of mentorship program, perhaps for like therapists of color who are wanting to get into private practice, because I think there are so many barriers to that. And I also think there's a lot of pressure for people of color to not be in private practice and to do agency, community-based work, which of course I think is important as well. But I think that you should get to choose what you want to do. And I would love to support other individuals on taking this route if that's what feels good for them.
Yes, that's fantastic. And it is so needed. Although I'm glad you're taking your time doing it when it's the right time for you, but that is a fantastic vision.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm working with a group of people right now I'm getting ready to work with a group of people who have graduated my program and are now looking at what's next. Like, what kind of scaling is it going to be? And so I just love hearing about that idea. And if you were to do that, like, I'm jumping like probably too far ahead, but have you thought about, like, would you want it to be very community-based, like where people are working with each other with you, or what are your thoughts about that?
That part I don't think I've gotten to.
Well, that's smart, because that's not the first step to. I just get so curious. Okay.
Yeah, no, I do too. And I like to kind of dream about what things could look like. And I actually do this exercise sometimes where I set a timer and I close my eyes and I just imagine like a good day in this future life that I want and what that looks like. And that helps me to really get in touch with not just the kind of idea of the work, like not the Instagram, Facebook version of that work, but the lived experience of that work. And if it actually feels good to me and what parts of it do.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Like, more than what should it look like? What do you want it to feel like every day? What's the actual experience you want to be having more of or less of? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so smart.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how have you noticed that people are finding you in your private practice?
So a lot of it is through word of mouth. I would say a good amount is just through my website. People will say they just Googled like therapist San Francisco. And sometimes it might be like woman of color or immigrant or one of those terms. Those seem to be the two main sources, I would say.
Great. And those things work so well together too. If you get a referral, then they're inevitably going to go and check out your website. So it works really well in concert. How did you choose, I want to say your niche, but really your niches of, figuring out that broad niche and then also the more specific ones?
It was a combination. And I want to kind of state for any other therapists that are struggling with this that I was pretty apprehensive of this whole idea of niching because I was worried, I think just like a lot of other people are, that it was going to limit me somehow or that I would start to just see the same kind of person over and over. But once I got over that or decided that I was going to at least see what it would be like to work past that, I took stock of the areas of interest for me. And I also looked back at my past clinical experience and thought about who were the people that I worked really well with. Who are the individuals I connected with? Who are the ones that I felt like we were able to do good work together? And these are all the things that came up for me. These are all the things that I noticed. And, I really like all of the people that I work with, which is incredible. And I'm not sure I could always have said in the past. It's great. It's so easy to be rooting for these individuals. And I feel connected so quickly. Again, I think because I do share more about myself, that people that resonates for, I think there's something there already.
So it sounds like I remember a supervisor talked about it this way once, like you can make use of your whole self with the people you're working with.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I believe so much in trying to show up as a human in the room, and not just a human, but like your person. So like my weird sense of humor comes out, my sarcasm comes out. And, I have to like check in when it starts to, like, how is this for you that I'm reacting in this way? I do a lot of that. I'm sure at times it's annoying, but it feels so important to get a sense of like, how is this landing for you?
Yeah.
And trying to show like, I care how this is landing for you. And like, these are my natural reactions and I want us both to be comfortable. I often take my shoes up and put my feet under like my butt when I sit. It's how I'm comfortable. And I was hesitant to do it at first because I had all these ideas about like, what is professional? Like, what is a therapist supposed to do? And then I just decided I want to be comfortable. I'm going to be sitting here, for hours today. And something really interesting happened. I noticed that then my clients would be like, oh, can I do that too? I'd be like, yeah, get comfortable, like get cozy. We're here for a bit. So I think even in those kinds of small ways of trying to show like, just be yourself right now and get comfortable and let's try and be genuine in the space.
Yeah. I have an idea for you too, which, take it or leave it, of course.
Tell me.
But next time you get your pictures done, because I think we should do them every, 1 to 5 years or so. Like next time you get them done, I think you should have at least one taken where you're sitting like that. So that you can
that's
have
a great idea. I'm actually looking to get more photos done.
Oh, cool.
I'll ask you for recommendations.
Yeah. Well, you're in San Francisco. One person who is great is Sarah Darrigan of Portraits to the People.
Oh, cool.
So that's just one person to check out.
Great. I will.
Yeah. So what do you charge?
I charge $220.
Beautiful. How did you start out there? Or did you build to that?
I started at $175. And then I realized like, oh, I think I should be charging more. And so then I increased it. For people who came in at a certain rate, I don't increase it like as I increase the rate like for new clients. I'll increase it some every year, which they know because it's part of their sort of agreement with me. Yeah, there's so much that comes up around money. I think for all of us as humans, and then especially as therapists, all these ideas about our value, our worth, and then sometimes ideas of like our basic morality and goodness too. Like so much is wrapped up in this. And there's also a lot of messaging, as I'm sure you're well aware, in therapist communities around the way that you set your fee and the way that you decide to like value, I'm putting that in air quotes, or how you set your worth. And coming from a feminist perspective too, I think that a lot of the services that we provide of like listening, caring, providing support, these are all things that are kind of under the realm of women's work, which I'm again putting in air quotes. And women's work historically and even now is underpaid and undervalued. And I think that's bullshit. I think that the service that we provide is massive. I think it's hard, challenging work. It's wonderful. I mean, I love this work. like nourishes me. I get so much from it, but I don't want to diminish what I'm doing for myself, and nor do I see any benefit for the individuals we work with to diminish our role or to like pretend like we're not putting in as much as we are.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And I think it was after so many women started coming into the field that the rates started going down.
Is that right?
I'm not positive about that, but I've heard that before, and it just fits with the picture I have of our field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
When you're talking about the way that it is in our community around fees, sometimes I usually don't go in for very long, but sometimes I'll go into Facebook groups of, just general therapists in private practice and to, see what's going on, see if I can help. But whenever there's something about fees, so many buttons are getting pushed. And I can see it just like the comments fire up, and there's a lot of judgment that comes out.
A lot of judgment.
Raw feelings. And then I'm just like, all right, I'm going to move on to the next thing.
Okay, see ya.
Yeah.
It's a charged issue. And I think we have to figure out what feels comfortable to us. But if we can't look at how we feel about money, how are we going to help our clients do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you do the work of figuring out what your right fee is and what's going to really, give you what you need in your life, and also value the outcomes that you're helping your clients find, then I think there's some really deep work that happens there with money. And then when you talk to your clients about money, whether it's the fee or just their financial situation, whatever it is, it's like you're so much more grounded. Yeah.
Yeah. I notice the like panic that comes like that just shoots into some of my clients' eyes when I start to talk about money, or they'll talk about overspending, and I'll say like, so how much did you spend? And they're like, oh, you want me to tell you the number? I'm like, I mean, we're talking about like, and kind of normalize.
Why would we leave that out?
Yeah. Why wouldn't we talk about the number? The number affects you, right? And just, trying to make that normal. I find that people have a harder time talking about money than sex in sessions.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I think there's something that's important. And that's, coming back full circle to how we as therapists think about that. I think just like for us, it's everyone else struggles with those issues too, of what it means to either have money or not have money, especially for individuals who are now making a lot more money than their parents ever had. That comes with a lot of stuff. You grew up with a lot of different ideas about who those people are. And I think it's important to talk about those things, as directly as possible when the time is right.
Yeah. And to be able to talk about that with real numbers is so much more intimate than just being able to kind of use broad brushstrokes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other, I think, part of our assessments where if someone was very vague with us, we wouldn't ask more, Like, okay, well, like, how many nights are you not sleeping? Like, is it 1 or is it 7 a week? So it's just funny to me how around that issue, there's this clamping up that happens.
That's so true. Like, I fight a lot with my partner. We would never say, okay, well, I'm just going to respect your privacy around that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, like, give me the play-by-play. Yeah. How did it start? What happened? What'd you say? What'd you do? Like, so as these conversations around money come up, and I notice people closing up, I like to explain why I'm asking the questions that I am. And I would say actually very like broadly in therapy, I have been trying to get a lot better about explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think as therapists, we understand our train of thought, but for the person that's sitting across from us, I think they're often wondering like why we're going where we're going. And explaining that helps to get us both on the same page. And I think it also, my hope is that it tries to at least come a little bit closer to a balance of that power dynamic between therapist and patient or client in the room that is there. And I don't think really can be like eradicated. It's there, it kind of exists for a reason. But anything we can do to help someone feel like they know what's going on, and it's been helpful sometimes when someone has asked me, like, why did you ask me that? And I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, and apologizing and owning, like, I forget that you're not in this chair all the time. And like, I need to explain myself better. And thank you for the reminder. So I think that I know that I'm more willing to share about myself when I understand why it's important. And so also whenever there's resistance around that issue or any other, explaining why this is important or why you're asking. So it doesn't feel like this kind of random probe into your life, but really like helps to set the scene for why this might be an important variable that we're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. That really puts people at ease.
Yeah. Well, of course, also, I think respecting boundaries is so important, and helping individuals feel like they can say no to whatever you ask. So I also try and really emphasize, I won't ever push you to say something you don't want to say. I will ask you to tell me why you don't want to talk about it. But I want you to respect, like when you notice that barrier go up, don't bulldoze past that for me. That's not healthy. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to help you to honor those boundaries and those walls that come up, and notice why they're there and what they're helping you with and how they're adaptive for you. And that, again, tries to shift the power back into their hands, because it's not for me to say what's good for them. It's for them to figure out what's good for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could see that even coming up around money, where when we ask about particular numbers, it's not that they have to tell us, but it's such an important conversation to begin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite questions. What if you could time travel to the start of your private practice? What would you tell the Niketa of that time?
I would tell myself to like enjoy the quiet while it was there, and like give myself the space to not feel like I had to be working every second when I didn't have work to do all the time. Just relax and know that it's going to happen, and probably faster than you think.
Great. So what is the best place for therapists to find you and throw compliments at you? Oh,
that's sweet. So the best place for people to find me is on my website, which is niketakumar.com. And that's NIKETAKUMAR. Therapists can also email me at drniketakumar@gmail.com. And I'd love to chat. I'm always interested and excited to hear what other therapists are up to or struggling with. So please feel free to send them my way.
Great. Well, you will get emails because that's what guests tell me. So
great.
Just awesome. To warn you.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Annie. I had so much fun.
Thanks for listening to Therapist Clubhouse. If you're sometimes confused about what you should charge for your services, check out my free worksheet and video to help you figure it out. Go to the show notes for this episode by going to coachingwithannie.com and clicking on podcast. You can also find the worksheet and video to help you set your fees by going to coachingwithannie.com and clicking on free training. I'll see you next week. Whoops, sorry. So I just said, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure.